mad, and then of course everyone's laughing, and Dad just walks away. And Uncle Bill happened to be there when it happened, and when he threw the ball and hit him in the head, Uncle Bill's like,
watch out.
Yeah, it's coming there when Dad just kind of walked away. He goes, there was a day when your dad pounded him into the court. But he just was standing there. It was just like that big old forearm going.
The arm stayed still, and this guy, like a cartoon, ding.
Well, I worked at the smelter with some guys who were from Ajo. And they'd say, your dad is Alan Polley? After school or before school, I don't know when, Dad would take on all comers who wanted to have a fist fight with him, and sometimes it'd be 3 to 4 a day that wanted to try to beat him, and he was undefeated. Toughest guy in Ajo.
And it all started with
Pussy. Okay, well, here's a story about Mom that brought something up. Do you remember her big old diamond ring?
Big old ring.
She get pulled, or like I can remember in the store, doing a credit card and them questioning would be like, flash the ring, or a police officer, kind of be like, Alan Polley?
Yes.
Okay, all right, ma'am, go on. But then I remember us breaking down on the side of the road and her taking that ring off, sticking it in her pocket. Like, that's not going to be the tool.
No, they want to help a single lady out. She looks like Mom. But I remember Dad used to tell us, if you get one ticket, you're not driving. There was no forgiveness clause. Well, I would get pulled over for a ticket, and they'd say, your dad's Alan Polley. I'll just give you a warning this time. How many times that if they only knew what would have happened if I got a ticket.
up your consequence.
Yeah. But Dad did say it depends on the cop. There's cops that hate me. They love to give me a ticket.
Remember, Dad had a thing with the policemen. They made him really mad, and he'd say like they're on a power trip.
He thought they were unfair. He did not.
No, but he used to say that to me. He would say, those policemen are just on a power trip. And
they
it
are.
would make him so mad.
No offense to your family, but they are.
We get to hear all the attorneys.
The only difference between a cop and a criminal is the badge. He used to tell me that all the time. Just because they have a badge, it doesn't mean they're a good guy. It doesn't mean anything. They could be just as bad as the people they were arresting. So he always gave me the thing, you better be careful, because some of these cops do not like me. And I saw him,
not the FBI, Brett. He's not talking.
No, he liked the Bureau. He didn't call it the Bureau. And he did tell me one of the regrets that he had was not going to Quantico. He kicked himself to your graduation. He goes, I kicked myself for not going. I don't know what I was thinking to not go. And he said, Brett, what do you know?
No, things were different then, because I were talking. My mom and dad dropped me off at BYU, and you just didn't go back and forth like you do now. And I went through the temple to get my endowments.
Yeah.
And my return missionary roommate was my escort.
Strange to me.
Yeah, Mom and Dad weren't with me when I got my endowments.
Well, I can tell you a stranger thing, and my parents will probably deny this, but they sent me on my mission without taking out my endowments first.
Really?
All you have to look is my mission starts January 20th, and I took out my endowments on January 24th.
His dad never served a mission, and he was the oldest, and so.
If you ask my dad that, he won't remember. He'll block that out.
But maybe in those days things were kind of different.
Mom and Dad never would. He started to come a little bit. Would never come to any of my games.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Mom kept score for all these games. She would never watch a game. And then all through, when I was playing at school, she would never come to watch me.
Well, I remember going to those Christmas plays in junior high, would have an assigned part, and the teacher said, if you're not there, you're gonna get a bad grade or reflect on your grade. I would have to get a ride to and from it. Tell mom and dad, hey, I got this program, I gotta be there. Well, you better get to walking. I'd walk to it.
Yeah, walk to
Get a ride home, and everyone else's parents are taking pictures and stuff. My parents aren't even there.
Bringing in flowers, you never got any flowers?
Is that where you learned what did I do wrong?
What?
Remember when our kids have things, you're like, what did I do?
Yeah, but
What
the
did I
mom
do?
went. As long as the mom goes, it's all
Yeah, but still,
legal.
what did I do? I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I have to go?
I guess I didn't care about Quantico, but I do have to admit, Mom and Dad did not come when I was inducted into National Honor Society, and all the other parents were there, and I felt like I was the only one whose parents were not there.
I don't remember.
I don't
Mom and Dad
remember
coming.
mom and dad.
Well, I think Mom about killed Dad
It's really.
because they called to tell Trina, like, okay, we're inducting Trina on this date, and so Dad answered the phone, but it was lunchtime, so we were there, so he didn't say anything. So Trina gets inducted, and we're all like, where's Mom and Dad? When I got home, I'm like, you guys missed Trina's thing. And Dad's like, oh. And Mom was like, oh. She was so mad.
I'm
She
guessing
was
they
so
were
mad.
busy and would forget
Well,
stuff.
Mom
just
was
forgot.
working, because it was, one of the days she worked. Anyway,
I don't remember any parents even being at mine.
this one was, they had like a reception after.
Remember Todd fell down the bleachers.
Yeah.
You too.
That's memorable.
That's why I forget.
That was very memorable. I even made the school paper.
You did? That's mean.
Had the candle and everything.
Smart guy, found
Highly intelligent, so clumsy.
Okay, let me tell the story since this is for January. Everyone was in the gym, and I was already in, and so I could go and take the candle and you put it in front of someone, and when they blew it out, then that means they would accept. Well, I was playing a trick on my friend. He wasn't inducted in, and so but I wanted to walk right by him and make him think that he was.
That's me.
That was kind of mean. So I probably deserved it. But so I was coming back down.
It doesn't look.
I was coming back down, and I was stepping between two people, but I didn't see that they had books. And I stepped on top of the books, and they started sliding, and I was about 3 rows up. And instead of falling on people with that lighted candle, I just jumped over.
Like a jungle cat.
I jumped over, and I had this big robe on, so I billowed up like a parachute, and I hit the wooden floor, made a really big sound. The whole gym is staring at me. My candle went out. And so I'm standing like that,
So you
and
got
all these people are whipping out their lighters. So they relight the candle, and I'm very, very embarrassed. And then in the paper, the guy was making like a criticizing kind of the whole event. And he said, it got so bad that inmate Todd Polley threw himself out of the bleachers and committed suicide.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And Mom and Dad weren't there to see it.
Well, the last question I wanted to ask was just a little bit about Grandma and Grandpa's relationship with each other.
In the early years or the later years?
Any years?
Yeah, tell us
We
both.
want to talk about the last year.
Well,
When we lived there, that was when Grandma was sick, but they didn't know she was sick. So she was really tired all the time, and Dad was pretty mean to her. Like, thought she was... It was when we were living there.
he didn't understand.
He didn't understand because she was never lazy or anything and never wanted to do anything, but she just wanted to sleep, and he just thought she was... She kept going to the doctor and telling them, and they would say nothing's wrong. They would do
They thought she
x-rays,
had
they would
pernicious
do
anemia.
yeah, they would do all sorts of
She's
things,
low.
but they didn't say anything, and so he would kind of like
tease her, but it was hurtful to her because, you know, she was never lazy or anything like that. But that's what I remember that. And then when she was sick, then I think he really apologized to her a lot.
He felt really
really bad about the way he had.
I remember he would get really mad at Mom when he had a meeting or something, and Mom was always on the phone with somebody, and he'd try to call home, the phone was always busy. So then he got, I'll never waste my time calling her again. So Mom never knew when Dad was coming home, if he had a meeting or something. He said, well, why didn't you call me? Because you're on the phone. I can't call when it's busy every time I call.
But that was just at the end.
Yeah, that was just in the earlier years, like we said. Mom thought he was so funny and laughed at his jokes.
But the main problem that I understood was that they always had been really unified, and then at the end, Dad started getting really stressed about retirement. And he was so worried about what am I going to do, and that's why he kept running to get retirement benefits, to get elected. And Mom had her ideas of, you know, we'll
spending money,
get a pool, or we'll do, and Dad would say, you know, nothing she wants to spend money on is selfish. It's always for the family. And he could see that, but he was still really stressed over how am I going to, you know, what's going to happen when I quit working. I mean, he made good money, but knew he couldn't do it forever. And so they just kind of had this where they couldn't agree or couldn't understand each other's point of view, and it was really causing a lot of friction, where their whole marriage, I mean,
yeah, I don't ever
they got
remember them
along.
fighting. I
Yeah.
don't ever remember
but
seeing any.
Mom had a certain amount of leverage on him because when her mother died, she got a house for free that was paid for. Dad didn't ever have to make a house payment. That house sold for twice what the house in Sierra Vista cost. She was owed a pool. That was her money. She had...
Well, there were no really nice houses in Sierra Vista to buy.
Right. But
and then we moved into that really was a pretty small house
right.
for 6 kids.
Same size house I lived in there.
It seemed so big when we were younger. That
it was a lot nicer when they added that big room on.
Right. But here's the deal.
How about a big room, Angie?
You're gonna need it for a long time.
He owed Mom figured she owed it. He never. I mean, how would it be if you never had to make a house payment? And Mom figured, I gave you a house, why don't you give me a pool? And Dad kind of saw her side of it on that, but it killed him knowing that the retirement, he was nervous. I would ask Dad, what are you so nervous? Why do you keep saving money? You have retirement now through this county attorney. He goes, what if the state goes bankrupt? What if they go bankrupt and they don't pay my...
Well, I think he saw Papa T.
What if the world blows up tomorrow and your money's not worth anything? I said, what if you die when you step outside the door tomorrow? Dad was like paranoid.
He was always prepared.
Then on Bernadette, he'd say, well, you know, I need someone to cook and clean for me, and it gets lonely. I said, well, a cleaning lady and a prostitute would be a whole lot cheaper than old Bernadette is. But he was, I mean, he always thought like that he had to do something. I just threw that in. Had to work Bernie.
Heavy Youngman with that.
Had to work Bernie into it.
Todd, you got any input on this relationship, Mom, Dad?
I guess we were in Texas, so any of the later years,
well, it can be any year. It doesn't have to be
well,
relationship.
I would say, like I think what Lisa just said is my perspective. I think Dad adored Mom. And I think Mom thought he was the smartest, funniest, handsomest man. To me,
It was a
it was
true love
almost
story.
like a fairy tale thing. Although Dad used to always say it was the Cinderella story in reverse, because Mom
Had money to start with,
Yeah.
and then
she
married
came
the
from a
poor
wealthy
guy.
background, and she married Dad who had, Dad was poor. He grew up poor.
Pair of jeans.
Let me put it this way, there wasn't a guy around who would have wanted to steal, or a sleazy guy around who wouldn't have wanted to steal Mom from Dad, but once they saw Dad, they knew the relationship, they knew there wasn't a chance in heck of any of that happening.
Yeah, they definitely were always in love, and we always knew that. And the thing I remember, even after the short time that you always knew they loved each other still, but right after they found out Mom had leukemia, and they said they were driving home in the car, and they said the thought just hit both of them, why have we been wasting our time? This is so unimportant. And then everything just changed.
Well, let me tell you a little something that me and Mom had a conversation about. I don't know if I told you this, but this is when I
I'll have to whisper.
We gotta talk louder.
This is kind of freaky. I'm still kind of ambivalent about sharing this, but this is when I was working in the treatment center, counseling, talk about your feelings and all this stuff, and Mom was really distraught that Dad would never have an emotional expression, wouldn't talk about his feelings. This is when our family doesn't say we love each other, and it was something that bothered me. It's like, why doesn't our family talk about anything? Because our family had to be perfect. You didn't march out of line, which is why you got so much grief, is it was perfect was the choice that was made for us, and if you weren't, then there was a problem. Well, Mom was really having real problems with Dad not being emotionally available, because he was working, he was doing his thing, he was running for office, he was not there emotionally, and she was having problems with it, to the point where she was really contemplating, like, I can't go on like this, something has to change. Right after that is when she was diagnosed, and everything did change, because then Dad got the message that I got to start talking about what I really feel, because I don't know how long she's going to be here. And that changed everything for all of us, really, is when Mom
Whatever
got
happened
sick.
to that journal? Did
What
you ever
journal?
read the journal that she wrote?
Julie's got it.
No.
She wrote a journal, and it was,
You said you have her wanting the journal in some.
last I heard.
I don't know about a
You
safe.
know the safe.
I don't have a journal.
You know.
I think.
Do you have a safe?
No, I think Dad, I think Dad lost it, 'cause I asked my dad,
No, I never
I asked
had a
my
journal.
dad about it, and he said he didn't know where it was, but I could.
He got rid of it.
Dad
Yeah,
lost a
it
bunch
was,
of
it was
stuff.
a lot about those
Oh, you
feelings
copy
of
this.
feeling like alone.
Alone
feeling-
and just not having any kind of
No,
connection.
that
Yeah,
was
wondering
Your
why
mom kept the
he
journal.
would
You have that journal.
share more.
Yeah.
Come on.
If I do, I don't know where it
Oh,
is.
man.
It's somewhere with the wheel. Bernadette has it.
Rubels, Krugerrands, but I don't recall where the safe is.
I do, the only thing that I do have is Mom's wedding band, which I don't know what to do with, and
Cash for gold.
a couple of little, pieces of jewelry that she had.
Yeah, I think Dad said that the journals got lost. I don't know if
But
got robbed in the robbery or
At
something.
Bisbee
Yeah, he
Junction.
had them at Bisbee Junction.
But because
I
of
always knew those
Yeah.
Mexicans.
they're still reading it. It's a telenovela.
After.
Is that illness changed, because that was the first death that we really had. I mean, like some, because it always happened to someone else. these deaths. People, others' moms died in that. But that changed our whole family.
Trevor, I will tell you this and follow what Brett's saying. Dad perfected himself after that.
He wanted to
He perfected himself
even
like
told me.
no man I
He told me
ever
that too.
saw.
He said, I'm going to be the
Very
husband
good.
I should have
Best
been.
husband.
Yes,
He said,
and
I'm doing it
your
in
grandpa
lieu
lost his
of-
mind with grief.
He did.
Consequently, he shacked up with his dad and lost his mind.
Well, he told me I'm going to be the best husband, but just know that
It should have been, yeah.
it's in memory of your mom.
Yeah.
When
But
I do
he-
it, it's in.
And he was a really wonderful husband throughout their marriage.
No, he
The
was
hairs
great.
on my neck are sticking up. It's weird. That hair.
He would say such nice things to her, and she would just look at him like.
She was bad news.
Oh,
No
no, like
doubt
her
about it,
any-
she was bad news.
Camille calls her, what's that grandma who hates us?
She was insane. She was so lousy
I
as a
know,
person.
I know
I
one
don't have any
thing.
problem saying that. I told her she was lousy.
I think,
Wasn't
She
it
was a
cold
cold
fish?
What's wrong with you? We're bending over backwards to welcome you into this family.
She was
You're like a
awesome.
cold fish, and she was just. And Dad's like, now, because Nancy was there, Jerry was there, we're having dinner. I just said, Bernadette, we're welcoming you. What's the problem? You're like a cold fish, and Dad started bumping. We don't have. Let's talk about something else. It was very uncomfortable. to Dad about it.
well, I know we just all hope that that there was some type of videotaping when Alan and Sharon met again, because
Oh man,
hopefully we'll all get to see that, because that
yeah.
would be interesting.
It worked out good for Dad
Yeah.
in hindsight, because he didn't want to
Yeah,
live
she
that long.
wasn't alone, or he wasn't alone, and she did clean a mean
No.
house.
Cleaned some house.
He's like, when she makes a list, the cleaning supplies are on the top.
I remember this, Trevor. My friends,
Cleaning supplies are at the top.
That's what he told me.
Oh, she's like one of those classics. She's like,
That is an
That is
example of
what he
Dad's humor.
no, when I went from LA to live, I stayed with them for as long as I could. It was wild in that house, man. They would get off work. There was a chair there, a chair there.
yeah, and they
The
would.
TV was on, and they were just sitting there.
Oh, but Bernadette would be cleaning from the
Yeah.
moment she got home.
Crazy.
But when we were younger, when I was like living in my friends would freak out because Mom and Dad would always be making out and kissing. So their parents obviously didn't do that. And I'd say, "What are you staring at, you pervert?" My parents are kissing. So they do that all the time.
Got five siblings.
I
show
never
up.
remember that. I
What?
remember holding hands, but I don't ever remember.
I remember Dad would always,
Like I
Sharon, come on, Sharon. Try to get her to laugh if she was upset or something. He'd tease her till she'd laugh. And
They had a great relationship. Their
They
relationship was a love affair, and they
Yeah, Mom
held
would
it out.
just laugh
They
at
just,
everything he said, and that kept them going.
they had a love
I
affair.
don't like being Ange.
You know what? I think the interesting thing is probably
She's laughing.
to get
Laugh.
to get an accurate feeling, you would have to not necessarily hear what Dad said to Mom, but what would Dad say to other people about Mom and vice versa.
Oh, they thought the world of each other.
Yeah.
They would totally
Mom,
thought the world of each other.
the way Mom talked about Dad,
Yeah.
we all idolized, admired, respected Dad so much, looked up to him, and my mom.
Boy, this is emotional.
We knew this was coming.
What makes it to this long? Goodness.
Yeah,
Wow. We've been waiting all night for this portion.
I give Mom, as I've gotten older, I appreciate how much Mom contributed to that. Because she told us from the time we were little how lucky we were to have a dad like that would play with us. She would tell us how, your dad is the best lawyer and he is, the best father, and you are so lucky to have him. And there was no one who was more a bigger fan or behind Dad than Mom. I mean, you always knew, there was nobody else.
Well, that comes from
So
Mom.
get in the van, we're going in a parade.
Mom,
Going to Douglas and we're in the parade.
Practice
parade.
Mom's dad, she had such a relationship with her dad. Her dad was a drunk, full-on drunk. She's walking home from high school. He comes stumbling out of some bar in downtown Phoenix, bumps into her, so drunk, doesn't even recognize her. And she said she was so ashamed that he didn't even recognize his own daughter, that she walked past him, didn't say a thing, didn't do anything. So she's modeled that guy, and then Dad is that. She used to get so mad at us for not doing exactly what Dad said because he was the best dad.
Tell me, how can you not do it?
If we don't understand how great Dad is, you got another thing coming, man. You are idiots to not understand.
Well, I'm thinking, I remember one time I never thought I could make your dad squirm until I cornered him on your chili recipe.
Oh, props to Angie for the chili recipe.
Because that was my favorite thing, because I'd get dumped at their house all the time, and Gray would go out shooting with his friends. So your dad said, we're going to make red chili. And I'm like, yes. So I'd be in the kitchen all the time with him while he made his red and green chili. And then finally I cornered him. I said, do you have it written down? No. I said, okay, I'm going to write. You tell me what you do. And it made him so uncomfortable. Because I was like, I need specifics. I said, what are you putting in now? And he'd be like, I don't know. He'd get so flustered with me. And we finally went through the whole thing. And I was just so excited when I was done. And I didn't make it for a long time because he always made it for me.
And that's how he would keeps on giving.
That's how he would cook anything. Is he would just start with ingredients and then add a little this. He wouldn't even know what he would add.
And I'd be like, I need to know, like a teaspoon. What do you think?
Angie, you're more famous for getting the recipe than his red chili.
We're all indebted to you for doing that.
Can you imagine if that recipe, that was a stalwart, every big family thing with the Reeves, it was red chili and or green.
None of you guys be shy. You can ask Angie to make it.
I'm gonna get the recipe. In fact,
She gave it to me
because all the up in Utah, nobody knows how to make good Mexican food. I know, and I'm gonna make you guys some real Mexican food. Are they used
to a different kind of Mexican food?
Everybody loves that red chili. What are you talking about?
Well, you think they do.
There's no.
They should. Not liking that red chili. Dad was a great cook. Mom couldn't cook when they got married.
Oh, are you kidding? You guys talk about, the good meals and stuff with desserts that you made, and I was telling Brett and Lisa that was an advantage of coming later down the line. Because when we started off,
for what?
Salmon cakes.
Oh yeah.
I've heard about
and
that.
we have little fish sticks and those mixed vegetables with the lima beans and turn the timer on.
We got fish sticks. We were in heaven. That was like a Friday night.
Todd did like the fish sticks.
I did like fish sticks.
I
It was
like
amazing when we were breaking out the fondue set. That was crazy.
But then one meal we would have the cantaloupe with the sherbet ice cream. That would be our dinner. You guys remember that?
I think that was a later.
That was like Katrina then. Because we always had one summer meal where it was just the fruit with sherbet.
Well,
Does that sound delicious to you?
Well, I wasn't paying attention.
Stuff. He gets craving something.
He was doing that in Phoenix. How about a bun Phoenix, clam chowder, and cabbage.
Crab cakes. He was
That was great. A bun cake. How about a bun cake?
The spice bun cake with Gypsy Rondo.
Is it working?
Oh, I remember Gypsy Rondo.
With the little squirt.
Here, use this one. It's It's working.
Dad could put the chow away. He liked cooking and he liked eating more.
Popcorn and ice cream every night.
Alternated.
I remember.
I go glass of ice water.
I remember the popcorn and the caffeine-free Pepsi that Grandma would drink every night, and she and Grandma.
She
would
started
get
drinking
fed.
caffeine free. I
Once
never
it
knew
came
that.
out, yeah. Yeah, that was, she was happy for that.
I remember I loved going in there and sitting in the bed with them. They'd be watching TV, and Grandma would be eating, and I'd eat that popcorn, and it was so delicious, and then she'd give me a little sip of Pepsi. We felt like a rebel.
It was a little salty and
oily. Yeah, they liked the salt.
I love the salt.
Good.
But then they started not putting the oil on and got the buttered salt.
Grandma liked salt on a lot of things. She would eat salt on apples. Did she salt watermelon? I can't remember. Cantaloupe.
No, she would salt watermelon pepper.
That's right. Yeah.
I picked that. It's really good.
Okay, well, whoever knew you could make Jell-O without nuts,
or ice cream, or
brownies,
cakes,
or anything.
Gotta have nuts.
I was like, we would have been if we would have been allergic to nuts or didn't like nuts, we would have never eaten dessert.
I
And she
know.
used to do this with her gum.
Oh, I wondered why you were doing that. I was
Remember,
trying to
Mom
be
would
like,
just be sitting there and unconsciously
Oh,
snap,
she
snap,
could do
snap,
it
snap,
loud.
snap. And Dad would like, Sharon, stop that.
They don't sell Freshen Up anymore. That was the time she used to get Freshen
that.
Up.
And it had the burst.
Yeah, you bite into it as the gel in the
I thought that
middle.
was magical. I love that stuff.
Cinnamon, always cinnamon.
Well,
I like cinnamon.
I will just say one last thing. I wish you grandkids had even an inkling of how much she loved you, and that was, I think, her, knowing that her time was coming to an end.
At the worst time.
Not being able to see you guys grow up.
and she even
Was her
mentioned that.
biggest
No, she said. And
The
we all
last
said, oh my
time that
goodness,
she
because
taught
there was
us.
Kristen, who else?
Well, Danielle was a baby.
Okay.
Chad was born.
Sam and
Yeah.
Danielle were babies.
Yeah.
No, it was just because her
Holden was
whole
just
life
born,
was
was like
grandkids,
little.
and right when she starts to have grandkids,
Well, Landon and McKay were
bam,
They were all little.
2 weeks away from being
cruel,
born.
Yeah.
cruel hoax.
Yep, I'll never
Cool.
forget her laying on that couch there after she got out of the hospital, and she said no grandmother ever wanted to watch her grandkids
Or was
grow
that
up
at that
more.
Wyndham? Remember?
Yeah,
Yeah,
at that
was a
resort,
crying
we had a
shame,
testimony
man. That
meeting.
was so sad.
And then you guys couldn't even see her because she was so sick.
Well, and then my kids don't even have real strong memories of Dad. I mean, they were little enough that they had one or
Donuts. Took
two.
them bought donuts. My kids remember that, don't they, Ange?
And it's
Down
just,
one time by
just the generations is the kids not knowing how cool Dad was and how great Mom was. It's just a trip to think about. If only you could have known Dad, because that's, you can talk about him, but until you know the man, see him in action.
And he was really a lot different after Grandma was gone.
Yeah, a lot.
It was a lot more serious. The last time that I ever saw Grandpa, it was when I was in college and I was already sick. And he came and gave me a hug when he was about to leave. I gave him a hug and I thought, oh, he's just saying goodbye. And then he just held on to me for like 5 minutes and just told me how sorry he was that I was having to go through that. And how much he loved me. I've never forgotten. Like, sometimes I think that Grandpa could feel things like he knew that things were going to happen, like a little before. Because, I mean, that wasn't the kind of thing that we normally did, but I've always been so grateful. And just just to have that little moment.
When was that?
Was like at
Probably
Trevor's
Trevor's
farewell.
Oh, at the church.
No, it was at our
He came-
house.
Oh,
he came to
before
the house
he
then.
left.
Yeah, before he left.
I remember he wasn't feeling very good. He said, I better get on the road a little early here.
Lisa said he was mad at Ivan and I for taking up your time, Trevor. Because there was too much on the program. Do you remember that, Lisa?
I wasn't there. I lived in California.
Oh, then somebody told me that.
Dave quit doing that because of you guys.
Well, I talked for 5 minutes. I did keep mine down, and Ivan did too. I just think they had too much planned
Well,
on
we
it.
put a lot. I mean, basically everybody in the family except maybe Holden Hunter spoke.
Yeah.
Tressa?
I think Tressa was the youth speaker.
Oh, really?
First I had to do a number.
I had to see.
Can't get through one of those without that going on. Yak, 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 yak.
Holden
They
brought
could
me
tell
on
us
to
everything
talk.
they know in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What was
Okay,
that?
let's open up shop. Any of you kids know any stories about your grandparents that you want to share? Before we get professional editing and put this in a nice, neat little package.
They just remember, you wouldn't want to go. You wouldn't. They're just carnival.
There's cotton candy in my house. You don't
want to go.
I will say my clearest memory of Grandma is her laughing and saying, Alan. There are times when, she's not, I don't remember her as well as I would like, but I can remember that and I can hear exactly how her voice sounded and exactly what her face looked like. And it's like everything about Grandma comes back to me like that.
Well, you guys the Hewishes will have a lot of memories of Big Ivan's because he's got these things that he uses quite often. They're Big Ivan.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one more thing about
How's he doing anyway?
she had like polio when she was little, and so she kind of like, she couldn't exercise, she kind of walked slow, but you get her in the mall, and she could outwalk anyone.
Short little leg.
I mean, me and Trina would be like,
One short leg.
Mom, can we go? We're done. And she would just be like, nope, she had a plan.
You used to take us out of school to go shopping.
Yeah, that was
a
the
good day.
Tucson trip.
That was a
Good
good day.
day. Yeah, we'd be all excited about seeing the Reeves, and they're at school. What kind of deal is this?
You're going shopping.
Oh, see the Reeves. Mom didn't want us wearing Kmart clothes to school.
We had to go to Tucson to find a decent store. Yeah, that was fun. I liked those little trips. Get to talk to Mom on the way, and then she'd go let you pick out your school clothes.
The other thing I was remembering was when we dug that big pit back there, lined it with all the rocks.
That was above and beyond the Call of Duty, man.
Wonder what happened to that
Three
Reeves.
sides of beef in
We could have buried
body carried.
We could have buried 3 or 4 people in that
I
pit.
know, that thing was so overkill, man.
You're talking about the one in Sierra Vista?
Yeah,
the
Because we did the one at Bisbee too, that 3 in the morning, throwing rocks in to line
Which place in Disney?
the old
Dad's?
ranch. The
Well,
old
this
ranch.
is one when you were in Puerto Rico. This thing was a boiler. Wesley got somewhere and he lined 6 steel. I got a leaf blower to supply air to it.
Oh, yeah.
It went about 8 feet.
It was
He got a
an
backhoe.
industrial-
I remember Mom saying, Greg, you mind if I use that leaf blower to blow leaves? I said, by all means. But that thing, once you heat it up, it took like a quart of wood to get it hot. It'd stay hot forever.
It did take, it was like a quarter of a cord.
Mhm.
Well, do you boys remember? I don't remember who was all there, but what was at Bisbee Junction?
I
Well, I remember Britt was there because didn't you end up sideways on the cow or something and it knocked you into the fence?
Yeah. But I remember what Dad
How long
would
has
do.
Britt been there?
I remember him taking Chad and Landon, I don't know who else is there, and said, your job today
Yeah,
is
that's
to
what
throw
I
as
was
many
gonna
rocks
say.
as